in the beginning days of Yu-Gi-Oh, you wanted to play cards in your deck that you wanted to see in your hand. That made sense. However, one thing that Konami has done in the last 5 years especially is they've added cards that are super powerful, have insanely good effects, and the way that they've balanced them consistency-wise is by adding cards that you need to play to use those cards, but that are really, really bad to draw. Today, I wanted to break down the top 10 cards you don't want to draw in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think this will be a fun one, especially because I may or may not be known for playing a couple of these in the past. So anyway, the number 10 one is, some people say Kaboozles, some people say Kabazals. I'm in the Kabazals park. This card was played in the 2012 Dino Rabbit deck. It was a really important piece because you had to play this and Sabersaurus, which were the two most powerful normal dinosaurs at the time. You needed to summon your Rescue Rabbit, banish it to summon either 2 of Kaboozles or 2 of Sabersaurus, and then go into your Evolzar Exceed monsters. And that play was really good, but you had to play 6 normal monsters to do it. Drawing a Sabersaurus wasn't nearly as bad because Sabersaurus could actually run over the Kabazals, and it also can run over things like Drak Waiba, where Kabazals couldn't kill Sabersaurus, obviously, if both you and your opponent drawing normal monsters, and it can only crash the Drak Waiba. It also couldn't get over a lot of the monsters back in the day, and by far, I don't think that Sabersaurus is necessarily deserving a spot on this list, but Kabazals was really, really bad to see. It's the first one that you always wanted to take out of your deck if you had Rescue Rabbit, and yeah, you don't want to draw this card. It doesn't have a lot of attack points. It can't even crash with like Thunder King, which is another popular monster played back in the day. And the number 9 one is Super Quantum Blue Layer. Now, you might not remember, but this card was played quite frequently when Emergency Teleport was at 3 copies per deck, and even when it was semi-limited. The main use of this card was either to special summon itself and add Red Layer to your hand, or to just special summon itself as a level 3 monster to make rank 3s, primarily in the Phantom Knight archetype. And both of those uses were really popular when Emergency Teleport was at 3 or 2, but you really didn't want to see the blue layer. Yes, you could normal summon it to still add the red layer to your hand, but especially if you were playing the Phantom Knight version that didn't have any search targets, all you could really do with blue layer is normal summon it and hope to get it off the field so you can put it back in the deck for Emergency Teleport. And this card wasn't completely unplayable when you drew it because of this, but it still wasn't a card that you want to see, essentially just being a dead normal monster. The next one is SPEEDROID at TAKETOMBORG. Now, a lot of people might think this would be higher on the list, clocking in only at number 8 here. With SPEEDROID TAKETOMBORG, it's kind of different because it doesn't really kill your whole deck if you draw it. You can still special summon it from your hand even if you drew TAKETOMBORG and Terratop. Other popular decks that use this card would often play Levier the Sea Dragon, so you could also summon a Levier the Sea Dragon, special summon a TAKETOMBORG from your hand. Yeah, it sucks to draw, but it definitely wasn't the worst card on the list here. Just because, I mean, really, when you think about this list, even though they are sort of arbitrarily picked as far as what goes where, because these are all just terrible cards to draw, the bottom of the list here are cards that aren't as terrible to draw, don't totally cripple your strategy. TAKETOMBORG was annoying to see, but not strategy ruining. Number 7 is GEARGIANO. So if you didn't play back in 2014, you might not know that Geargias are one of the top decks. The main reason was that Geargia Armor plus Geargia Gear was one of the most powerful openings back then, lending a ton of free card advantage for basically no investment. The downside was that you had to play multiple of the level 3 Geargias to make use of the Geargia Gear with. GEARGIANO was pretty shitty to draw, I will not lie, especially in multiples. But it wasn't the worst ever, and the reason that it's so low on this list is because a lot of times, as long as it wasn't the first turn, you could normal summon it to tribute it to special a guy from the graveyard. That was actually quite useful back in the day, because you could either get a level 4 Geargia to then special summon like an accelerator from your hand to make a rank 4 play, or you could even summon the Karakuri tuners from your graveyard. Still, not something that you wanted to see in your hand. You always just wanted to special it from the deck, but maybe not the worst card ever. Getting into the cards that definitely hurt a lot more to draw, we have METALFOES Counter at number 6. METALFOES Counter, man, it's one of those cards that all the METALFOES spells and traps are bad to draw. You don't really want to see Fusion or Full Metals Fusion or any of those, but with combination and those other cards, you can at least make some use of them, but with counter, you really can't. If you draw the fusion cards, you can fusion someone with them and then put them back in the deck with Thrillium. If you draw a combination, you can pop with Archfiend Eccentric, but if you draw a counter, there's not really anything you can do besides set it and pass. One of the reasons that Boom was so popular in the METALFOES deck, especially with Zoodiacs, was because you could put back METALFOES counter and other bad cards that you don't want to draw. But the reason that METALFOES counter made this list besides the other three is specifically because it's the only one that you can't do anything with if you draw it. Combination, popping it with Eccentric might not be the most ideal play turn one, but it's definitely a lot better than just having to set a trap card and pass. Number 5 is probably the most modern example on this list, and that is ZOODIAC Combo. This card is pretty funny because its name might imply that it's a combo piece, when in fact it is the exact opposite. It is the card that you want to send with Rapier and use for literally nothing else. Luckily, though, if you draw it, it has a marginally not terrible way to get it off the field. I don't know. You don't want to see his card. And one of the frustrating things about ZOODIAC Combo was that without it, Zoodiacs are one of the most consistent decks in the entire game, especially after Terratop was limited and people stopped playing TAKETOMBORG. If you cut Combo from your deck basically had 0 dead draws. But the thing that made Combo so frustrating is that a lot of times, especially in the mirror match, you really wanted that longevity. You really wanted to put back 5 cards in your deck. And the requirements for it aren't really difficult in Zoodiacs, considering you can just poop all of your extra deck monsters onto the field, for lack of a better term here. And but man, it sucked to draw, especially considering the rest of the deck was so consistent. Seeing your one true Garnet definitely was really frustrating. The next one on the list is one that I always get made fun of for mispronouncing, Drac-Alio. Now, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce this, but that's what I'm going to call it. And anyway, this card sucks to draw in regular dinosaurs because you want it in the deck to summon Miscellaneousaurus to then make Denglong, which gets you to your True King of All Calamities. It especially sucks to draw, though, in the Yangzing dinosaur deck because you absolutely need it in the deck to make your Denglong. Because in that deck, the Denglong isn't just getting you to a True King of All Calamities, it's getting you to a whole bunch more combos. And this has allowed a ton of players to play 2 copies of this in their main deck, just in case they draw one. Yes, it increases the chances of you seeing one if you play 2, but in the Yangzing Dinosaur deck, you actually just need this in the deck to function. So you have to play 2, which means you see it even more, which is even more frustrating opening hands, but it's just something that you have to deal with. And yeah, I personally hate this card a lot because I play Yangzing Dinosaurs, and anytime I see it in my opening hand, I just get really frustrated because it's definitely going to be the worst card in that hand. Coming in at number 3, we have the baby GARUNIX. Not a lot of people played Fire Kings, but a lot of people played Fire King Island. Fire King Island is a very powerful field spell, and it found itself in a variety of strategies, the main one being Cosmos that were capable of creating some of the most ridiculous boards in the entire game, at least in my opinion. I think that's a severely underrated deck, especially back in its heyday when Monarchs were around. You could just poop out I don't know why I keep going to the poop out. You could create some of the most powerful fields that you can ever do in Yu-Gi-Oh! Consisting of like Dark Destroyer and Dark Lady and Cyber Dragon Infinity, as well as like a ton of stuff in your hand. But you needed to play Fire King Island, you needed to play Baby GARUNIX, and once you drew that Baby GARUNIX, your Fire King Islands were pretty much dead. And that became even more frustrating because a lot of times people were playing like 1 Fire King Island and 3 Terraforming to search it out, so you basically had 4 dead cards in your deck. Yes, the Terraforming can still search the Cosmo Town, but with the Fire King build, you sacrificed a lot of the defense that the regular Cosmo builds played just to play a more aggressive deck. And when you drew your Baby GARUNIX, your combo was pretty much useless, and the ending fields that you could create when you drew that card just were not nearly as powerful as the ones that you could create if it was in the deck still. Coming in at number 2 is Predaplant, Darling Cobra. I think a lot of people thought Predaplants, I mean, even myself included here, we thought that Predaplants would be really powerful when they came out. Orphis Scorpio is an incredible card. It doesn't really have a steep cost, and it does something that's completely crazy, actually. Maybe not so much that Norden is banned, but still. A card that can search Instant Fusion or Brilliant Fusion, as well as a slew of other cards, is just incredible. However, you have to play Darling Cobra, obviously, to have something to special summon. And, man, this card, it sucks to draw so much because your Orphis Scorpio can't actually special summon it from the hand. It can only special summon it from the deck, and that's sort of the main problem here, is that you're playing some really powerful cards that can do a lot of crazy things, but it needs to summon the Cobra from the deck. And the decks that were playing the Predaplants were not often playing Bababoon to shuffle them back. Not that Bababoon is necessarily the end-all, be-all of these cards on the list here, but in a lot of cases, especially the most modern examples, the decks that were playing these cards could potentially play Bababoon to fix the hands, but with the Predaplants, a lot of times people were playing them in Light Sworns and even potentially in Zoodiacs without Diagram, and there just wasn't a reliable way to play Bababoon to shuffle them back, meaning if you drew that Darling Cobra, you basically had 3 dead cards in your deck and 1 card in hand, and it was just really rough. Coming in at number 1, it can be no other than Gem Knight Garnet. Gem Knight Garnet is the Garnet of all Garnets. It is the worst card to see in your hand. It has 1900 attack points, so I suppose it's better than some of the other Gem Knights. But in terms of how many people played this card and how many people have lost games to drawing it, no other card can match it. Gem Knight Garnet is one of those cards that it leaves a legacy on Yu-Gi-Oh! We still refer to cards as Stratos if they search a card on summon. A lot of people refer to things that are spells that search as reinforcements of the army. And pretty much ever since people started playing Brilliant Fusion, they have referred to the cards on this list and many others as the Garnets of the deck. You can't have that much influence without being just the absolute worst card to draw, which is why it has to come in at number 1 here. Much like with Orifice Scorpio, Gem Knight Garnet completely ruins 3 cards out of your deck when you draw it, because you can't activate the Brilliant Fusion without a Gem Knight in deck. Now, I will say that the weird part about Garnet is that a lot of people played 2 of it, so they can make use of the Brilliant Fusions, because Brilliant Fusion is one of the most powerful cards ever created, and yet that sort of creates a weird paradox where you're playing more copies of the bad card just in case you draw the bad card, but then you draw the bad card more. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and yet a lot of people have done it, including myself. And Garnet is just one of those frustrating cards, and it definitely has left a huge mark on Yu-Gi-Oh! And I would assume for the foreseeable future that anytime that there's a bad card to draw in a deck, people are going to refer to it as Gem Knight Garnet. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this list. There were some older cards that I didn't include on it, such as Titanial, back from like 2010, 2011 period. But if there were any other cards that you wanted me to include on this list, but I missed, please let me know in the comments below. Anyway, I will see you guys later. Bye.